it's that how do you build that trust and then build that loyalty, that brand loyalty.
You could put trust in your name.
So, spoiler alert, because I love that phrase, the trusted toolbox. You can't be trusted if you can't hear that.
Well, what if you want to open a business that's not trustworthy, Chris? To Andy's point,
bail bonds.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Small Business Safari, where I help guide you to avoid those traps, pitfalls, and dangers that lurk when navigating the wild world of small business ownership. I'll share those gold nuggets of information and invite guests to help accelerate your ascent to that mountaintop of success. It's a jungle out there, and I want to help you traverse through the levels of owning your own business that can get you bogged down and distract you from hitting your own personal and professional goals. So strap in, adventure team, and let's take a ride through the safari and get you to the mountaintop. Hey, everybody, it's Chris and Alan again, and we are back with the Small Business Safari, and we've got a great episode today.
Man, you're starting hot.
Here we go. I'm excited. You know why I'm excited, Alan? Because we start every episode with cheers.
Cheers.
Cold and beer. Today, we're cheersing with Andy Suggs.
Cheers. Hey, Andy.
The branding czar of Reckon Branding. And we're excited to have him here because
he has the best T-shirt I've ever seen in my life.
So why don't you describe his best T-shirt?
Star Wars font, and instead of Star Wars, it says pew, 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 pew.
Thank you, Ellen. You see, everybody thinks we have sound effects in the studio, but no, we just make our own.
You can just trail behind me when I'm walking around. The store is making audio effects for me.
That's all. That's exactly what you should be doing.
Such a good shirt.
As he's walking around, it's do.
Pew, 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 pew. You could be Darth Vader. Andy, I can already tell. He's with the rebels. He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. I'm not. I'm definitely going to be Darth Vader.
Or Lord, whatever.
It's great though because you get the closet Star Wars fans that they kind of nod, and smile, and look at you.
Right? You're walking through. You're walking through the store, and then you're like, you see this executive. He's got his suit on. And you're like, he's going, yeah.
Wasn't it one of the? It was one of the more recent ones where one of the actors was being interviewed, and they had to do multiple takes because they couldn't stop going pew pew pew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, when they were firing their guns.
Oh, that's funny.
Hey, you're fake. Whoa.
They're fake.
I'm having
You're back on now.
Mic issue.
Yeah. You're gonna have to be less frenetic. That'll be interesting.
Whoa, that's gonna be really hard to do, man. I can't keep not moving around. But let's get back to talking about Andy.
Yes.
It was off-centered.
All right. Yeah, it was. Somebody came in here and messed with my podcast studio, Alan.
I know. My mic was all in different directions and everything.
Yeah. I'm going to blame Ed. And they let him come on the podcast and he comes and screws it up.
I'm looking forward to hearing from Andy because not only does he have the coolest shirt, but he had a bio of who he was. He wasn't saying how many books he's written or, all the amazing things he's done in business. It's he can grill a mean steak and like to fish with his grandparents.
Yes.
So you've hit a little bit on his bio, and obviously you've taken a dig at somebody else who put their bio together, talking about that he is a published author.
Oh, did you take that personally?
I might have taken that a little bit personally. Yet again, Alan.
Just remember, I have yet to write a book, but boy, watch out when I do.
It's going to be a doozy. So we've kind of alluded to it. Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you and that cool bio that we'll put out there on the link for everybody?
No, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Andy Suggs, born and raised here in Atlanta. I have a branding agency just outside of downtown Norcross.
So do you follow rodeos? I had to throw a branding joke in there.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Dad joke.
Yeah.
Next time you do that, hang on, because I'll put that sound effect in. Ooh, hang on. Dad joke coming in hot.
We can have Ed cut that one.
No, I think we like that.
Okay.
So how about that? He's born and raised in Atlanta, and we call those people unicorns because you don't find them much.
Mm-hmm. There are a few of us. Yes.
Yeah. So how did you get, so you born and raised here. Did you go off to college and say, oh man, I am going to start my own branding company. I can't wait to brand the world.
Honestly, no, I grew up drawing. I love drawing. I have countless sketch pads and notebooks. I kind of unintentionally fell into branding. Like my first, if you want to call it job, I remember I was a sophomore in high school, and the varsity cheerleaders came and asked me to help them draw the run-through signs that the football players would run through at the beginning of the game. So I was like, sure, I can do that. So that was the first time, like, legitimately someone said, okay, so we're playing this team. We've beaten them this many years. This is their mascot. Come up with a thing. And so I would have to come up with kind of like a mini ad. And I honestly didn't even know graphic design was a career until I got to Georgia. I was planning on majoring in business and minoring in art. And it just so happened that the guy across the hall from me in my dorm was in the graphic design program. And I saw the projects he was working on. I was like, that's what I want to do. And so,
wow. All right. So you went to the University of Georgia.
Yes.
Go
Dogs.
National champions.
I wore the wrong hat.
So Alan has to completely always apologize because his youngest son goes to Georgia Tech, but he always reminds me that, well, look, I had two that went to Georgia. I'm like, dude, that was so last year. I said, my son's there. I get to go national champions, even though I didn't even go to the school, but you went there. So you went there and decided to get into graphic design. Did your parents go, Andy, we sent you there to get a degree that you can do something with, not to go out there and doodle on your sketch pad?
Thankfully, no.
Cool.
So my dad's actually kind of in your space. He did residential construction for 35 years. So I knew that's not what I wanted to do.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, right. But my mom, she was kind of a closet creative artist. So they definitely encouraged me to pursue that. They knew that was my passion. And no, it worked out. They were very supportive, thankfully.
So, you know me, Chris, I like asking the dumb questions that everybody wants to really wish that somebody would ask. And that's me. Difference between a branding company and a marketing company.
Good question.
Thank you.
So
I love it when Chris gets defeated.
One for Alan. That's right. Don't worry. It won't last.
So let's see if I can simplify this, because it's not exactly the easiest question to answer. But branding is telling your story, finding your story, what makes you the choice that your customer should select. Marketing is how you get in front of them. So how do you get those digital ads, those messaging, the print ads?
So you have nothing to do with that.
So we do it minimally. So
Okay.
we do bring in specialists when that's needed. So our core focus is branding and brand activation. Marketing gets into media buying, buying the TV spots, the radio spots you hear, buying digital ad campaigns when those ads pop up in Facebook, or those things pop up on the side when you're browsing the internet and they're like, how did they know I was
into Ukrainian women?
Right. Just hypothetically, of course.
A friend
All
told you
right.
that.
So Alan jumped right in. We left college already, and now we're talking about
No.
branding,
I
marketing,
wanted to get that out on the table.
right.
Yeah.
So
we can go
gold
back.
nugget there.
We can go back.
Because Andy brought up that gold nugget. The difference between branding and marketing, here's what I took away. Branding helps you identify who you are and who you're trying to find. Marketing helps you go find them.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So
yeah.
Thank you.
Do
I get one now? Thank you.
No,
darn it.
Sucking up to the host.
So it was too. All right. So coming out of school, you're sketching, and you had parents that supported you. That's one thing that we've talked about here a lot, is that your parents and how you were upbringing, you're brought up, either are very supportive, or sometimes they can be reinforcing negative habits, or maybe getting you in the wrong spot. So it sounds like these guys said, go ahead, man, go out there and find your passion and go explore your passion and keep going that way.
My dad got me my first job. So as I mentioned, he built homes, and in one of the neighborhoods he was in, they had the advertising agency come in to talk to the builders about what they'd be doing to promote the neighborhood, the community. And so he got me a conversation with Brent Carroll, who was one of the principals at Carroll White back in the day, and went in, talked with him, interviewed, and 2 weeks later I had a job.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So your first job out of school, then they said, Andy, we want you to come in and come up with a complete brand for all of us, right?
No.
Okay. Whoops.
No.
I mean, you actually had to work a little bit on
I
it.
did. Yeah.
So what was your first role in that company?
Graphic designer. So that's when the account executives and the media planners would come to you with a client's need. So I think coming up with logos I did a lot of that in the beginning. Designing print ads.
Do you look back on some of those first ones and go, oh dear God?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So you weren't perfect at 22?
No.
Oh, wow.
No. And I'm still not. I'll finish a project in 6 months. I'll look back at it and go, damn, probably should have done this a little bit different. You're always learning. And I think if you stop questioning yourself, if you stop wanting to be better, then that's where you get stale. So yeah, I'm very humble that way. I realize I will make mistakes. I will learn from them. And I always look back and look at how I could have done it better.
Yeah, that's also a gold nugget. You can be happy, but never content. Always looking back, because that's going to feed those creative juices as well. So you had this creative mind, and obviously you did some good things in this company, and you got promoted up throughout it. Mm-hmm. What happened then?
So I was at Carol White for almost 3 years. And then my boss and the senior designer actually left to start their own place. And so that kind of got me thinking, like, what should I do? And so I was probably there for another 6 months, but I realized I had kind of reached my peak of what I was going to learn there. So I had an opportunity to take another job. So I switched to another agency and I was there for a couple of years, and I was starting to slowly build my freelance client list. And so in 2003, I reached a point where I was like, I want to do my own thing. So I reached back out to my old boss and senior designer, Beth and Dana. And I asked and said, hey, I just need some advice. I'm thinking about getting into this. What did you learn? What I need to watch out for? And I went out to have lunch, and they're like, we have an extra office. If you want to come join us, you can. So took a serious pay cut, started with them. We're 3 freelance designers under one roof, and it just slowly grew from that to what we are today, which is more of a true branding and brand activation creative studio.
So you're saying and you mentioned 2 people, Beth and Dana.
Yep.
Are you still partners, and that's still the company?
So Beth retired. It's probably been about 10 years, but Dana is still my business partner. And then we have 4 other contract employees, and we have I call them permalance, or basically 2 very senior consultants who work with us pretty much exclusively.
So a lot of people that listen to this are, in that corporate world, they're kind of thinking that that's the leap they want to take, a small business safari. Do I want to take that entrepreneurial leap? Do I have what it takes? Am I going to bet on myself? How hard is it going to be?
Yep.
So when you went to make that leap, did you have an extravagant lifestyle? Did you have a family to support? So you were on your own? And so what made you say, okay, I can do this? Had you saved up enough money, or you said, man, screw it, I'm just going to go?
I remember reaching that point, and I think it was just that drive to be my own boss that pushed me to do it. I had saved up about 3-ish months worth of cushion. But I had, at the time, I had a house. I had a couple roommates. They were basically covering my mortgage, so my overhead was low. So it was the right time to do it.
Smart.
Yeah.
I like the way that you're doing that, because you jumped off, and you really, at the time, you said you went into a partnership, but really did you feel more like you were a solopreneur? Because you mentioned 3 freelancers in the same shop.
Yeah. I mean, we basically just kind of split the profits, and we kept busy enough, but it took a little bit for it to really grow into what people would identify as an agency.
So that's 03.
03 or 04.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then about what that time, it's like 2 years after that, did it take for you to start to say, wait a minute, man, I think we actually have something here. It's like a brand agency.
Yeah, it was one of those weird things where thankfully our clients hung around for a long time. And when you do that, you start to learn more about their business, and they start asking you to do more work, and you start learning more about how you can help them. So, it's a very difficult thing when you look at, because you could look online and find a lot of other branding agencies in the southeastern Atlanta, and they're different than us. So it's it's been very difficult for us to find what we feel is the right descriptor for us. Because honestly, a lot of branding agencies, when they work with a company, that engagement ends after the brand is done.
Right. That's what I was going to bring up. You said you kept people around for a long time, but I mean, I've been at it for 14 years. I get the same logo and brand that I had when I started. I haven't really rebranded the Trusted Toolbox or anything. So I wouldn't think I would have a need for a brand agency. How were you able to keep clients continually coming back and using your services?
So you'd say, hey, let's get out of the 80s, Chris. Isn't that how you do it?
The 80s called. They want my jumpsuit back. It was Zubaz shorts, by the way. I still have
the jams.
I do have the jams.
Yeah. They'll come back.
I got a whole box full.
So that question, I think, opens up a whole different dialogue. And we've talked about this before, but what is a brand? It's because people say, well, I got my logo, I got my pocket folder, I got my website, I'm ready to go. Well, a brand, honestly, we think of it as a living entity that has to be nurtured and maintained. And if you don't do that, that's when it could go sideways. So they would come back to us because they would have new needs. They would have new opportunities. They'd be adding new services. They'd have a new client, persona that they were now working with. And so we constantly worked with them to help them evolve and help them grow. And I think that's where we take a slightly different tact in that. For us, helping a client define their brand is the first step in our journey. After that, then we have to help them activate it. And that's honestly because so often I hear people, they spend so much money getting a brand made, and then they're given all the assets and the tools, but they don't know what to do with it. So then they go out and they're, okay, well, I got to find a marketing person, or I got to find a web person, or I got to, find a social marketing person. But then all the thought and strategy that went into creating that brand isn't necessarily carried over to the new partner. And so that focus starts to dilute. And then 2 years later, they're like, oh, what did I get out of all this money I spent for a brand? So that's why we prefer to continue working with our clients, because for the most part, most people, when they're starting a business, they don't need a specialist. They don't need to go to, you asked before we started talking, or when we were talking about what's the difference with marketing and do you do marketing? And we can do enough to help most businesses get started. It's not rocket science. Now, when you start to get into very specialized strategies and specialized media buys, then yes, that's when we bring in our partners that we work with to help with that. But for the most part, getting started, you don't need a specialist. You go to a web development firm, and for the most part, they're not going to even take the call if you're not talking about 50 grand or up. And, for us, we look at it as okay, how can we get something up just to start growing your company? Because you don't need to put that kind of money into a website when you're getting started. There are other areas that you should put that money into. But of course, if you go to a web development firm and say, I need help with my marketing and branding, they're going to say you need a new website, because that's what they do. That's their hammer. And yeah. So
when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Exactly. Right.
I'm full of them. I get another one. I think I'm going to help the branding guy with his tagline, bro. I got it. Reckon Branding, your agency for life. Reckon Branding. We help you get to the mountaintop of success, one step at a time. How am I doing? If I say it like that with gravitas, is that better?
That sounds good.
Thank you. Pew, 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 pew.
That sounded beber. So you're saying that when somebody's starting out, they don't need you. How do they know when they need you?
I would say that that's not true.
Okay. That's what I heard.
Yeah. I don't think that when you start out, you need to look at hiring specialists who are in different, what I'll call tactics, like going to a firm that only does websites, or going to a firm that only does social marketing. I think where we do benefit with companies is helping them understand what is their hook. Why should they pick you over others in your space? Because more often than not, when people start out and they don't have a budget, they are having to prioritize other expenses, they come up with their marketing on their own, which is natural. But what you often see is they end up selling what they do versus why them. If you go to nearly every attorney's site, any landscaping site, any photographer's site.
That is such a good nugget.
I mean, all right, let's talk about that one for a minute. That is awesome. What did he say that you heard?
he said that most people, when they're doing their own marketing, just tell what they do rather than why you should choose them.
And what do we all like listening to better is a story about why we should use you, right? Yeah. All right. So,
well, can I add on to that though? When you're dealing with a brand new company or a young company, they may not have their why formed yet. They may not even have identified who their true target customer is or what their true specialty is.
Sure. And honestly, your brand should not be tied too tightly to your customer because that's going to change. Very likely, you're organically going to grow and have new services. You're going to go into new areas you never would have thought about. So, I mean, that does come into play when you're naming your company. You know, so many companies I start working with, and they're called, you know, Atlanta's tree removal service, and now they're wanting to go out into Chattanooga. So what do? You know, they tie themselves into, they name themselves in alliance with a technology or a service, a product that they're offering. And then 3 years later, there's some new product that came out that they want to now offer, but my name is about that previous product. So what do? And Chris, you said it right. It's understanding your why. And that's what we have learned to do. And we don't have it. I mean, okay, spoiler alert. All ad agencies in Atlanta do this, basically the same thing. They just call it by different names and they have their own proprietary, you know, a brand for it and process. And but it all comes down to, we have about 4 processes we go through with people, and it does help them understand what's your why. And it's one of the questions we often ask is, if you were to, if making money, why are you doing this? And that's not always an easy question to answer.
Yeah, you just blew Chris's mind.
I don't have that answer. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, actually, it's good. He actually hit on 2 things that we actually went through in the Trusted Toolbox and just talked about it yesterday. As the Trusted Toolbox, I did not want to be pigeonholed and just be the cutesy handyman. I didn't want to have a handyman in the name because I want to be able to grow. And we're at that point now where we're doing remodeling, where it might actually be half of our business is remodeling. And we really want to double down in the next 2 years and really get after bathroom remodeling as our specialty. Why? Because we think we're really good at it, but that's not the why. And we talked about this last night. You're right. We've got to tell a better story about why people should use us in their bathroom as a master bath retreat or a place that you're going to use at least every day. And so what do you do with it? So you hit on that. You're constantly evolving. I mean, I think a lot of people don't realize that we are always evolving as businesses. Because if you want to be one of those 1 out of 10 that survive those first 5 years and 1 out of 10 that make it through the next 5 and get there, you got to continually be looking at that brand and that why and how you figure out what you said, something that was also good. I call it our unique. You said our hook. Why would you go with us? Why do you go with this company? Because anybody can get your bathroom remodeled and anybody can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you imagine, a lot of people listening to this already have a business. And so I would challenge you to look at your website and your marketing materials. And if you're trying to differentiate yourself, I call the 3 Ps, price, product, or promotion. And if you're always trying to outprice people or you have a new product that's come into the market that you want to sell, or you're, you know, 0 down, 0 financing for the next 3 months, your competitor, others in your industry can undercut you by $10. They can say extend the months, 6 months. And so that's not a brand. That's not anything that has a shelf life. But what is unique to you is I often ask people, like, if someone were to refer you, what would you want them to say? And I've never seen anybody refer somebody because of the logo that they had or their website or even necessarily price. It's because, you know what, I don't know what it was, but I just trusted these guys.
So trust, the customer experience. We talk about that a lot in this podcast.
Yes.
Is that we all deliver a product or a service if we're listening to this. And if everybody does, it's a product or a service. That's what we do.
Yeah.
So it's that, how do you build that trust and then build that loyalty, that brand loyalty?
You could put trust in your name.
So spoiler alert, because I love that phrase, the Trusted Toolbox. You can't be trusted if you can't hear that.
Well, what if you want to open a business that's not trustworthy, Chris? To Andy's point,
bail bonds.
Yeah. Well, but so if I were to ask 6 people, what does trust mean to you? I bet you get 6 different answers.
Oh, that's a good point. Wow, you think about that for a minute. That's deep thoughts by Andy.
Well, how many times do you see people say, we treat you like family? For the majority of America, they would be like, God, no.
Right.
That's the last
My
thing
dad
I
used
want.
to beat me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are these
It's
gray.
not Ellen's counseling time. We're going to have to park that one for a little bit later. We'll bring in a counselor later, but yes.
So, I mean, yeah, there are these kind of these white noise phrases that people use. Okay, we lost you.
Oh my God. Yeah, you lost us on that one because thank God I know your dad's not listening to this one, but the family members that are listening to it, no, he did not get beaten by his dad. I was just making a joke. It was sarcasm, hard to get across. So let's continue, shall we?
Let's.
Okay. Back to Andy.
So yeah, I think there are just these common claims that people make, like how long you've been in business. We treat you like family. You're not just a number to us. Those, anybody can say that. But those aren't the things that people would say if they were to refer your company to their friend. They would say, if you think about, like, companies really differentiate themselves on the process, like what's it like to work with you? Or it might be you might be like the emerging technology player in your space. You're always looking for the latest and greatest. And some people really want that. Some people are about being eco-friendly and environmentally friendly. And that's another angle that a lot of businesses take. But it really comes down to what's that emotional experience that someone has with you. And it can be excitement. It could be calm. It could be intrigue. And each of those are valid hooks to hang your hat on for a brand.
You hit on something that's just, it's so funny, but there was a movie that came out. They talked about if you just said the real story in the advertising, it would work. You guys will probably remember this movie. UPS, we'd run over your mother to get this package delivered on time.
Volvo, we're boxy but good, or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't just say that. But going back to what you just said, big enough to help and small enough to care.
Sure.
Right? It follows hollow.
Right.
So what are people looking for? You said the trust, the connection. When you're working with companies, what are you telling them that people are looking for?
So when we start working with companies, the first thing nearly every time we do is we interview their customers. So we're not going to tell them we don't know, but we want to hear it from them. Why did you pick them? Or if you switched from another company who did this before, why did you switch to them? And again, nearly every time we come back with nuggets, they're like, the business owner's like, I had no idea. I didn't know that they thought that. I didn't even know they consider that or worried about that. And those are the little things that you really start to learn what's unique about you that others may not be able to provide.
So we're all afraid of that, though. Let's go get some feedback from our customers. No, please, no, God, no. They're all idiots. I didn't say that out loud, did I? Oh, yeah, I did. So you go out there, you do that analysis, you come back and start telling this is what your customers are saying. Now let's figure out how basically leverage that and start to build your brand around that.
Yeah, I mean, and we in parallel with that, we also are interviewing their leadership or whoever is a stakeholder in their brand, because there's a perception internally of who you are and why people are working with you. There's the reality of what your customer thinks about you. But then there's also what's the white space in your industry, because the last thing you want to do is create a brand that's a copycat brand. So what's
an example of a copycat brand?
What do you mean white space?
Oh, those two questions in a row.
I know.
We got time.
Often we will find that when we interview customers, they'll say, what was really important to me.
Chris just opened a beer, but he muted it.
I did. It's like calling out somebody who comes through, drops the biggest fart in the world, walks out the door, and like, "Hey, you man, you just farted, man."
You think anybody who's listening to this doesn't realize that you open a beer about every 10 minutes?
Well, that's true. The first one goes down fast. Okay.
Sorry.
So what was the question again?
Back to what is white space?
So white space is what a customer is looking for that's not being met. And
so area of opportunity.
Exactly.
Got it.
That's a great way to put it.
That's a great way.
Yeah. All right. That's two, but that's a week two. All right. So actually, I was writing that down. That's why you caught me off guard. White space is the opportunity. Say that one more time for me.
To solve a need for your customer that's not being met.
Nice. Okay, got it. Everybody out there, take some notes.
Yeah.
Or it'll be in our show notes. So that's white space.
There were
Yes.
2 questions. You had the other one. Did you already forget it?
I did. Well, I was hoping you'd answer it because there's no way I would remember what my question was. No way. No, not even clue. So go back, and if you know it, just hit me up in DMs, Instagram, customer service.freak, and I'll ask it again because spoiler alert, I think we're going to keep Andy around and we're going to do 2 episodes with him. This is getting too good. And I know I'm just like everybody else. I'm on pins and needles trying to hear about what I can do to help my own business, right? Because, hey, what can you do for me if you're talking to me right now?
Sure.
So go ahead.
I can change the subject a little bit and go back to something earlier,
Okay,
since we can't remember your question.
Okay.
Because it wasn't a great one.
It could have been.
It might have been.
Well, I don't know. We'll see.
So you talk about Atlanta tree removal, and let's say you're helping a company come up with a name.
Mhm.
I like those easy names. Big Trees Today was my favorite one, or college hunks moving junk. I know exactly what that is versus you know equiminable or all these
absolutely
weird little nebulous futuristic sounding names. So where's the nexus between what you do and something catchy?
I would argue that if you're in a service industry and you have a very specific skill and focus, and you don't see yourself ever deviating from that, then you can be much more descriptive in your name. I would also say though, like, it's weird to throw out these big brands and big companies because people go, oh, well, they got millions of dollars to promote their names. And they're right, but they're still the strategy behind why they name themselves that is still relevant to you. So what is Apple? Oh, okay.
The plumbing just backed up in the studios here.
Chris just cropped us to the entire room with I was about to say something, but I gave a burp. Hello. How about that for branding?
See, Andy asked if this is actually going to be videoed, and I wished it were today because the look on your face before that thing came up was priceless.
Because it came out like a cavern. It's like, oh my God, that thing just resonated. I was like, I was throwing my burp. I threw my voice.
And I think Andy was just about to make another great point.
He was about. All right, so let's go back to and I remember what this was about to be. So big brands,
yes,
they have millions of dollars to market, but tell us how they do it better.
I think if you look at the successful brands, they're really tapping into that emotional connection they're able to create with their customer. If you think about Apple.
All right, yeah, I was gonna say let's pick one. Pick one and take us through.
Yeah, Apple's too easy. Pick a different one.
All right, no, you didn't get to get Apple. All right, sorry, you're getting judged.
Okay, so
if you have to do Apple, you can do Apple.
Geico.
Ooh, all right, let's talk about Geico.
Geico is an acronym.
Never.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I knew that. I'm trying to remember what it was,
though. The government employee insurance company.
Yeah.
Wow. It was the government employee insurance company.
I could be wrong on that, but it's pretty close if that's not it. So what was their issue?
If you knew that, please hit me up on DM because or send me an email because I never heard of that in my life.
It wouldn't fit on a business card if they spelled it out.
Exactly. It's hard to remember. So what was their first
one of their email addresses would be brutal.
What was one of their first campaigns? The Geico Gecko.
That was the first campaign, the Geico Gecko?
One of the earlier ones. But in their space, if you think about insurance, there's not a huge difference between the
total
insurance
commodity.
Company. Right.
Yeah.
So what's important? They have to be remembered.
Right.
So what do? They create memorable spots. The Gecko, the Caveman, Flo, State Farm Insurance, Jake from State Farm. If you look at
the Allstate guy,
the Chaos.
You're in good hands. Yeah. Oh, the Chaos guy. Yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well,
Mayhem. That's right. Mayhem. You're right. So it's all about being remembered.
So Geico, did they obviously had to do a great job of saying, man, we're insurance and we're government insurance, even worse.
Right.
So here's what we're going to do. And they come up with this Gecko, and then they started coming up with even more memorable stuff.
Yeah. Can you imagine the balls it would take to pitch we got this lizard and you're in the boardroom.
But there's a strategy behind it. And so I can bring this back to a personal client that we're working on right now. and you're familiar with this, working with Aaron Rents here in Atlanta. So they had the same problem. They came to us, and it was name recognition. They've been around since the 50s, and their customers were kind of growing older, and the name recognition was not where it should be with the
so
younger.
They need to be Aaron Rents a wheelchair now, or
right? Yeah, bedpans and yeah.
I think you don't want to rent those.
You don't want to rent bedpans?
No.
How about diapers? No.
Yeah, because
depends.
Hey, can I when you rent it, they come back.
Are these are gently used beds? Andy just hit the one I've been holding back on, but he just let the cat out of the bag. He's been working with Aaron Rents, but let's just put a pin in Geico. So
sure.
Geico was a big brand that went big and has continually changed their branding. Is that working with a branding agency?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, it is.
So marketing and advertising spend, that's a different group.
That's pushing it out. Yeah.
Branding is the one coming up with the new ideas and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So back to Alan's point, because we'll probably talk about
because it was a great one, wasn't it?
It was ish, but it was they had to have some balls to go into that boardroom and go, hey, insurance guys, well, that's a nice suit you're wearing. Is that from the 60s? That's nice. Oh, I like your comb over. Here's what we're gonna do. Instead of insurance, we're gonna take care of you. We're gonna push a gecko.
Yeah.
Do what?
Yeah.
No, we're not a gecko. We're an insurance company.
Well, and I guarantee you, when they came in and presented that, there's a lot of research and focus study that went behind that. So
40% of the population loves lizards.
Right.
What?
I don't know.
There's no way. He just agreed. That was. If you're going to suck up to a host,
right?
I'll pander to this guy,
right?
Not that guy.
Sorry
okay.
Sorry about that.
Do not pander to him. And by the way, 97% of all stats are made up on the spot.
That's true.
50% of the time.
Yeah. Where were we? So Geico. Yes. So I mean, all ideas are inspired by data.
So you got the data and you went back into it. Yeah. And so you're saying that the boardroom pitch went, okay, here's your customer base. Here's how you get to them.
We have a recall issue. People don't know your name. So how can we get them to remember your name?
Okay.
So let's equate it to something that they're very familiar with, a gecko.
Huh.
And in your space, there's nothing going on like this. So no one's kind of taking a more lighthearted, more enjoyable, approachable approach to marketing. So that already set them in a different camp. But then they're easy to remember because you're like, oh yeah, what's the that gecko company? Oh, it's Geico.
Well, right. And so now everybody is lighthearted and has a really fun.
They're
campaign.
Out trying, yeah.
So they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg,
or the emu,
or the
right.
So what's next for insurance companies? Back to the 60s and the comb over, or we're serious and everybody else is just all this tomfoolery.
Tomfoolery, nice pull from me. That is old.
That's a good question, and I think another tick.
Again, pandering to this guy, not that.
Chris, you're just focused on making the whole thing flow. You don't have time to think of good questions.
I don't.
No.
Right. I'm just keeping it moving. All right. So back to the good question. Go ahead.
So
answer it. It's good.
I think when you get into that space, when people are spending tens of millions of dollars to promote themselves, it's a different strategy. It's you're trying to connect with different audiences. You're trying to connect in unique ways. Where can we meet them where they are? The campaign itself, I think we can all sit here and go, oh yeah, the Ducks, Aflac, the Geckos, is Geico, State that has Jake from State Farm or Chris Paul. So they've done their job. Like, who they are. So now what they are doing is coming up with ways to be top of mind. How can we be in their world? How could we be the first company they think about when their current insurance company pissed them off? They want to switch.
Right. So, didn't Geico do the 15 minutes?
15 minutes will save you 15% or
more. Yeah. But that was after the Gecko,
it was,
obviously.
Right.
But that was also memorable and also made it sound like, it's kind of easy to switch. Right. That's the one that played to me. I was like,
Yeah.
I got a short attention span. That sounds great.
Actually, that's 12 minutes longer and I'll pay attention. But I was like, wow, you're close. Make it 3. If you could do 3 for 3, I'm in. But So going back to, you said Geico and the Gecko, and I know we brought up Aaron's Rents, but we're not going to really talk about that in this episode.
Okay.
We're going to talk about your journey with Aaron Rents and how you took them from where they are and
Okay.
who they were, because a lot of people probably out there don't know who they are. So I want you to put that all together. So let's go back.
Sure.
In your agency, you're running your business, you're freelancers, you got back into it. I want to talk about not just the branding piece, but how you guys grew your own brand and your company. What did you do? I mean, because right now you're how many people in your company?
We have 6 full-time staff, and we have I'd say 8. We have 8, a team of 8. Yeah.
Do you have any aspirations to get any bigger than that?
No, we don't. Maybe add a few, but we know where our strengths are, and that is part of like being very nimble, very easy to work with, very approachable. Not a lot of layers of red tape. You know, for us, for our approach, and this isn't right for everybody, but for our how we work with our clients, the people who come in and sell are the people who are actually going to be working on your account.
Yeah. So you're working with people, because there's a phrase out there: if you're not growing, you're dying in your business. Yeah. And you just said, hey, I don't want to really grow my people. I want to grow my portfolio, or maybe what I'm doing, but you're helping other people grow.
Right.
How did you guys come up with that? Or is that something you do on an annual basis and you guys think about this? And is this a strategic decision on your part, or is this just kind of something that just happened?
Well, I mean, until 2019, we were a different name.
What was your name before this?
The Visual Lab.
You were Visual Lab.
Yeah.
And today you're Reckon Branding.
Right.
So you guys rebranded yourself.
We did.
Did you go talk to your customers and find out?
I was wondering the same thing.
You know what? We did. And a lot of the feedback we got was that they didn't feel that the name represented what we did. Because you think when you say Visual Lab, you think visuals and graphic design. And we really were getting more into branding and strategy, helping companies grow. And this was bigger than graphic design. So that's why we went back and scrapped it and came up with a whole new brand.
So did you guys engage yourselves to do that?
And it took forever.
Yeah. They were tough clients, weren't they?
And they were very.
Yeah. Is one of them sitting here in the room?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So as you go through that Visual Lab, because you guys are like, well, that's who I identify with. And I'm not sure I want to unidentify with that. Is that part of that change journey you got to tell people go through?
And I think talking to enough of our clients and understanding where we wanted to go made that transition more acceptable and really more necessary. We knew we needed to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, it's a mature decision.
It was tough, but you know what? I mean, thankfully, we've had many clients who've gone through that transition with us. They knew us as a Visual Lab, and now they know us as Reckon. And everybody always says that it just fits better. It seems right for y'all.
Yeah. Right. So, and he threw in the y'all like that.
Yeah.
Is this guy does not have a Southern accent. Is that? I mean,
so
are we going down the Southern thing?
So let's find out. One of our core values is Southern, and we all are born in the South, raised in the South, but it isn't about how we talk. It's about how we communicate and how we work with you. So Southern fit for us because we tend to be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more easygoing, a little bit more conversational. So it just fit for us. And then the other brand essence words. So there's Southern. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank on this one. I should know it.
I'll go with what I think. Cast iron, drinking a lot, sweating my butt off, bugs. I'm not helping. I'm like, that's not really.
It might jar something.
Okay, you're there. Okay, so
see, it worked.
Thank you. So our 3 brand essence words are curious, practical, and Southern.
Huh.
So we came up with those words before we came up with the name Reckon. But Reckon fit that because if you think about it, curious for us means that we're always challenging ourselves. Is this the best way? Are we approaching it the best way? Is this the best thing for our client? Practical means that we realize everybody's budgets are different and we're not here for a project and go away. We want to have a long-term relationship. So we have to be very sensitive when we come to our clients and recommend what they should be spending their money on. And then again, revisiting Southern is just about how we are and how we act as people.
I think the Southern part actually helps you niche down and dive into your customer base better. Is that what you guys were thinking? Instead, we're not all things to all people. And you brought it up actually a number of times. And here you keep talking about Atlanta area agencies. And I keep thinking, I don't care if they live in Atlanta or not. You know, it's an agency. They could be anywhere, right? But you said, no, that's who we are. That's where we go. Is that where you're finding all your customers is here because you've niched down like that?
Most of them have been, honestly, because it's been referral-based growth. But we have, I would say that the FaceTime and Zoom, it works, but it's different when you're sitting in someone's office and talking to them, and you can see how it's decorated, and see the people walking around and kind of get a feel for the vibe there. And those little nuances you don't get them when you're dealing with a client that's across the country.
Got it. That's a great point. You know, sometimes you got to buy local to get where you want to go. Yeah. Man, there's just so much
feel it in the podcast. I mean, we're having a very open and like we've been buddies all our lives. This would
be very different if we were doing this on three computer screens.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, that's and we talked about it. Alan hates the Zoom calls, but sometimes I just got to get some of these other folks on who are bringing great value like you are. But that's why I've been dying to get you on, because you got so many great branding stuff. But guess what we're not going to do in this episode, guys? We're going to just talk about Andy and his company, but next episode we're going to start deep diving into what he does.
You keep saying that over and over again because you're trying to control yourself, aren't you? Because I think we're doing just fine.
Are we?
Yeah.
And I'm definitely trying to control myself because there's so many cool things I know he does, and I just want to hear about that. So with that, I think this is probably a good segue. Come back and check it out. Next episode we're going to be rocking branding, what it does for you, what you could do for your company, how much should you spend. What should you expect from a branding company? How can we find you? But before we do that, Andy, let's go ahead and let everybody know how they can find you now.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate it. And by the way, those are great points.
Thank you.
Ooh, there's one.
You know what?
Only took 53 minutes. Nice job, Chris.
I feel like I would have won the battle. I just ran out of time.
Well, those were multiple points. So, you can find me on our website, reckonbranding.com. That's RECKON branding.com. And if you want to email me, feel free to shoot me an email. It's just Andy, ANDY at reckonbranding.com.
Guys, I take him up on this. I've actually had the good pleasure of knowing Andy for now going on over 3 years, seen him do a number of presentations, taking a lot of companies to different levels. He's talked about being your ad agency for life, or he's being the branding agency for life. We're going to rebrand him on that one. No. All right. So I can't do it. But guys, keep listening to the Small Business Safari. If you like what you're listening to, go out there and tell everybody about us, because I think we're doing some really cool stuff. I had somebody call me over the weekend and tell me that they love and all this stuff and wants to hear a little bit more about how we can market his business better. And I'm like, you just wait, brother, because I got somebody coming. You're going to love this one. So we got lots of great episodes. Go check them out. Go tell your friends about us. We're the Small Business Safari, and keep getting yourself up that mountaintop of success. And we are going to take care of you along the journey. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Small Business Safari. Remember to keep that positive attitude, which will reflect in a higher altitude as you're out there making it happen in the wild world of small business ownership. Until next time, go make it a great day, Adventure Team.